Welcome to Dr. Mercola's Cellular Wisdom. Stay informed with quick, easy-to-listen summaries of our latest articles, perfect for when you're on the go. No reading required. Subscribe for free at mercola.com for the latest health insights.
Hello, and welcome to Dr. Mercola's Cellular Wisdom. I'm Ethan Foster, here to explore another vital health topic with you. Today we'll discuss menopause and the growing evidence that many women may actually experience estrogen dominance during this phase of life. Joining me is my co-host, Ilara Sky. She brings a strong background in natural health approaches, and I'm looking forward to her perspective on this important issue. Ilara, let's begin by clarifying why estrogen dominance might be more common than most people realize.
Thanks, Ethan. I'm glad to be here. Traditionally, menopause has been associated with low estrogen, leading many health practitioners to recommend hormone replacement therapy, or HRT, in order to restore what was assumed to be missing. However, newer research suggests that even though a woman's blood levels of estrogen might decline, her tissues can still maintain or even increase estrogen concentrations. This creates a scenario of dominance, where progesterone levels lag behind in relation to estrogen.
That's a crucial distinction. Blood measurements can be misleading if they don't capture what's happening inside fat tissues and organs. A 2024 study in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism examined how HRT influences the levels of key sex hormones in postmenopausal women. Tell us about their findings.
The study included 63 postmenopausal women. Some were using oral HRT, while others were not. They measured estrone, estradiol, progesterone, and testosterone in each participant's fat tissue and blood serum. The women on HRT showed a marked increase in estrogen levels within their fat. In fact, estrogen concentrations soared fourfold to sevenfold in both subcutaneous and visceral fat when compared to those not using HRT. Meanwhile, testosterone concentrations in their visceral fat dropped by about 30%.
So, by adding HRT, they boosted estrogen within fat while pushing androgen levels down. That has the potential to skew the hormone balance significantly. Did they look at the estrogen to androgen ratio in these tissues?
They did, and the results were striking. For HRT users, the estrogen to androgen ratio rose 9 to 12 times higher in subcutaneous fat and 4 to 6 times higher in visceral fat, relative to non-users. In other words, the hormonal environment in the fat tissues was tilted heavily toward estrogen. This shift occurred regardless of what was happening with total testosterone or estrogen in the bloodstream. It's a clear sign that local hormone metabolism in fat is profoundly influenced by HRT.
This raises a big question. If many postmenopausal women already have high estrogen levels in their tissues, is the conventional view of menopause as an estrogen-deficient state accurate? It appears that even those not on HRT can be estrogen dominant. One commentator, Georgi Dinkov, highlighted how these ratios paint a very different picture. What stood out to you from that commentary?
Dinkov emphasized that although absolute estrogen levels in the bloodstream might not be dramatically high, the ratios are often the key to understanding overall hormonal health. Specifically, the progesterone to estrogen ratio can show whether a woman is estrogen dominant. Ideally, we want a ratio somewhere between 200 and 500. Once you drop below 100, many would classify it as estrogen dominance. Yet, in this study, the ratio for menopausal women not using HRT hovered around 16 to 38 in different tissues, well below the optimal range.
So, these supposedly healthy menopausal women who weren't on HRT already showed significant estrogen dominance based on those ratios. If that's true, adding additional estrogen via HRT would compound the imbalance, potentially intensifying the risk factors linked to high estrogen. Let's talk about why too much estrogen can become problematic for the body.
Estrogen plays a vital role in metabolism, bone health, immune function, and more. It's also tied to cardiovascular and cognitive well-being, but it behaves like a double-edged sword. When estrogen rises too high, it can fuel inflammation, disrupt mitochondrial efficiency, elevate intracellular calcium, and even contribute to autoimmune conditions. Research in biomedicine and pharmacotherapy describes estrogen as a necessary evil because it's essential to physiological processes but dangerous in excess.
Another issue is the environment's role in boosting estrogenic activity. Endocrine disrupting chemicals, or EDCs, have become widespread in plastics, household products, and other everyday items. These synthetic compounds can mimic estrogen, increasing the total estrogenic burden on our bodies. Combined with dietary factors, such as seed oils rich in linoleic acid, many people end up with estrogen dominance without even realizing it.
Exactly. Many items contain xenoestrogens, chemicals that act similarly to estrogen once they're inside the body. Meanwhile, seed oils in processed foods deliver polyunsaturated fatty acids that can mimic estrogen's effects too. This elevated estrogenic load can lead to overstimulation of receptors, increasing risks for breast cancer, ovarian cancer, and other hormone-sensitive conditions. The rising prevalence of PCOS and infertility also suggests that we're swimming in an environment that favors excess estrogen.
Given this knowledge, it seems prudent for many women to rethink how they approach menopause. Instead of focusing solely on replenishing estrogen, there might be a more balanced way to support hormonal health. What do you recommend for naturally managing or reducing estrogen dominance?
One suggestion is to track prolactin levels. Since estrogen stimulates the pituitary gland to produce prolactin, elevated prolactin can signal high estrogen activity, whether from the body's own production or from external exposures. Another important step is removing seed oils from your diet. By keeping linoleic acid intake to below 5 grams per day, ideally around 2 grams, you reduce a major driver of estrogen-like activity.
That's a straightforward dietary strategy. In addition, everyday consumer products often contain compounds such as parabens, phthalates, and other EDCs that mimic estrogen. Reducing plastic use, especially heated plastic in contact with food, is key. And it's also wise to filter tap water to reduce microplastics, which themselves can carry these disruptive chemicals. All of these small actions can help cut down on the overall estrogenic load.
Precisely. People can also reconsider estrogen-based therapies, like certain contraceptives and conventional HRT. It's not about demonizing these medications, but realizing that they can exacerbate an existing dominance. For many, bioidentical progesterone may be a better option. Progesterone naturally antagonizes estrogen, helping restore a healthier ratio. Especially when a woman hits perimenopause, a careful introduction of natural progesterone can stabilize many common menopausal symptoms without further driving estrogen levels upward.
The takeaway here is that menopause isn't always about lacking estrogen. In many cases, there's an underlying dominance that can lead to health concerns, if not addressed.
This shift in understanding can empower women to choose strategies that focus on overall hormone balance. Knowing about hidden estrogen sources in everyday products, recognizing the influence of seed oils, and considering natural progesterone when appropriate can all make a difference. It's about taking a measured, informed approach, rather than assuming low estrogen is always the root cause.
Thank you, Alara, for laying out these insights. We've highlighted how menopause often involves higher than expected estrogen levels in tissues, the role of HRT in amplifying estrogen in fat, and the practical steps for minimizing estrogenic exposures. That wraps up today's episode.
Thank you, Ethan. I hope this conversation helps listeners gain a clearer perspective on what really happens during menopause and how they can maintain a healthier hormonal balance.
And with that, we conclude today's discussion. Thank you for joining us on Dr. Mercola's Cellular Wisdom. We'll be back with more straight-to-the-point health insights soon. Until then, take care.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe now and click the notification bell so you never miss an update. See you in the next video.